Ready when you are.
Good afternoon. This is, I'd like to call to order this special meeting of the Encinitas City Council for Wednesday, August 28th, 2024 at 5 p.m. And if the clerk would please call the roll.
Councilmember Lyons?
Here.
Councilmember Ehlers?
Here.
Councilmember Hinsey is absent. Deputy Mayor Blackwell?
Here.
And Mayor Kranz.
Here.
Record will show that all members are present with the exception of Councilmember Hinsey.
Okay, thank you. We are gathered here today to have a discussion and get a status update regarding the implementation of the city's homeless action plan. And we're going to hear from Homeless Solutions Coordinator Sam Stone, one of the newest members of the team of folks that are working to address the issues of homelessness in our community. We also have Captain Shane Watts here from the Sheriff's Department to talk a little bit about the new operational approach that they have taken in light of the Supreme Court's decision in related to Martin v. Boise, as well as Grants Pass versus, I think, Johnson. So that has created a new dynamic, and I think it's important that the community know what efforts that we're making to address homelessness. We did also adopt a budget on July 1st that included 2 new sheriff's deputies for working on the HOPE team. So we now have HOPE team coverage, which is homeless outreach. What's the PE stand for? Okay. They are 7 days a week dedicated to working with our homeless population to find them shelter. So I'm looking forward to the update and the conversation that will follow.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and City Council members. Thank you for having me here tonight. As the Mayor said, I am the new staff member, Sam Stone. I am a Homeless Solutions Coordinator. And I am here to give an update on the city's homelessness action plan. Homelessness is a growing issue at the national, state, regional, and local levels. That growth can be seen in the point-in-time count data, which shows increases in both the unsheltered and total unhoused populations from 2023 to 2024, both regionally and at the city level. Here we see a snapshot of the city's yearly point-in-time count data over the last decade, with the notable exception of 2021, when the point-in-time count was not conducted in San Diego County due to COVID. As we saw on the prior slide, there was an increase in homelessness in both the city of Encinitas and the greater San Diego region from 23 to 24. In February of 2021, City Council adopted the city's Homeless Action Plan, or HAP. The HAP was developed to improve the quality of life for all residents by preventing and reducing homelessness within the city and serves as the city's guiding document for addressing homelessness. The HAP provides an action-oriented strategy that includes steps to address systemic gaps identified through data analysis and stakeholder engagement. The steps outlined in the HAP reflect national best practices that have been shown in a number of cities to be cost-effective approaches to functionally end homelessness. The HAP focuses on the following: increasing the capacity of the city and the community to end homelessness in the city through the development of a collaborative, community-driven approach, decreasing the number of individuals experiencing homelessness through a demand-driven, person-based homeless response and supportive housing services system, and increasing the availability of temporary and permanent housing. Over the past year, city staff partnered with the County of San Diego, Jewish Family Services, People Assisting the Homelessness, McAllister Institute, and the Community Resource Center to increase capacity of the city's homeless response system with the goal of decreasing the number of individuals experiencing homelessness within the city. During the year, 2 of the city's community partnerships came to an end. From 2021 through June 2023, the city contracted with the McAllister Institute for an outreach case manager to assist people experiencing homelessness in the city in the need of alcohol and substance abuse treatment. The case manager was funded by a one-time COVID-19 related opportunity through federal CDBG grant funds. The Opening Doors program, managed by the CRC, operated from May 2016 through June 2024. The program worked with people experiencing homelessness in Encinitas to secure permanent housing. Opening Doors paired participants with a housing navigator that conducted a standardized assessment, determined an appropriate housing solution, identified available resources, and helped find and secure permanent housing. Although CRC is no longer operating the Opening Doors program, they continue to provide food assistance for low-income residents. They served 470 individuals through the food assistance program over the course of the year. 458 of those individuals were extremely low income, and 223 of the individuals were experiencing homelessness. It's important to note that there are a significant number of extremely low-income individuals who are not experiencing homelessness that were served by this program. And so although homelessness prevention is not the stated purpose of the program, it does provide economic relief to low-income households who are currently housed and so can contribute to homelessness prevention. The JFS Safe Parking Program provides 25 parking spaces at the Encinitas Senior and Community Center and provides resources, tools, and support to help families stabilize and transition back into permanent housing. Services are focused on basic needs assistance, employment, family wellness, school success, financial education, credit repair, and housing. Throughout the year, the program served 86 individuals, and since program inception, it has served 220 unique individuals. The Department of Homeless Solutions and Equitable Communities Office of Homeless Solutions focuses on collaborative and coordinated outreach and case management services to assist people experiencing or at risk of homelessness. They perform outreach in the city 3 to 4 days per week, connecting individuals to self-sufficiency programs and providing case management and housing navigation services. The PATH San Diego Homeless Outreach Program is a countywide program designed to assist people who are experiencing homelessness and struggling with mental health and substance use issues. Program staff conduct outreach in the city 5 days a week to support unsheltered individuals with meeting basic needs and providing housing-focused short-term case management. The Homeless Outreach Program for Empowerment, or the HOPE team, is the city staff collaborating with the county and other community partners. And we conduct outreach 7 days per week, as the mayor mentioned, providing referrals to the Buena Creek Navigation Center and connecting unhoused residents to other resources as desired and available. From August 2023 to present, the HOPE team responded to 432 community requests submitted through Tyler 311 and 750 requests since the program began in February of 2021. In March of 2024, the city, in partnership with the City of Vista, opened the Buena Creek Navigation Center. The BCNC, located near the City of Vista, provides interim housing and trauma-informed support to adults experiencing homelessness who are pursuing long-term rehabilitation and stable housing. The BCNC consists of 24 rooms with the capacity to serve up to 48 adults. Encinitas has exclusive use of 12 beds, or the equivalent of 6 rooms. Since opening, the BCNC has served a total of 29 individuals experiencing homelessness in Encinitas. Over the next year, city staff will continue to collaborate with the community partners to implement the HAP with the goal of ending homelessness in the city. With the increased capacity created by hiring a second homeless solutions coordinator, staff are expanding outreach while focusing on improving efficiencies within the city's current homeless response system. We are applying for additional grant opportunities and increasing collaboration with community and regional partners through actions such as participation in the Regional Homeless Management Information System and working with the Regional Task Force on Homelessness and other community partners to develop and operationalize a city-specific by-name list. In June, staff submitted an application for the California Interagency Council on Homelessness Encampment Resolution Fund grant. The proposal employs a housing-first approach to end unsheltered homelessness in the prioritized encampment area. The encampment area encompasses multiple Caltrans state right-of-ways throughout the city along both sides of approximately 6 miles of Interstate 5, including an area west of I-5 extending to the coast. If awarded, the funds would allow the city to expand its homeless services infrastructure and provide targeted assistance to connect people experiencing homelessness within the encampment area to permanent housing and other supportive services. City staff would collaborate with RTFH, the Regional Task Force on Homelessness, to prioritize assistance for highest needs individuals and hold regular case conferences with community partners to ensure coordinated and effective service delivery. A key element of that program is participation in the Regional Homeless Management Information System, or HMIS. Homeless services staff are now participating in the regional HMIS managed by RTFH. HMIS is a U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development mandated software application used to collect, store, and manage data about individuals and families who use homeless assistance services in a defined area. HMIS participation will allow the homeless solutions coordinators to better work with other service providers and to enter people experiencing homelessness in the city into the coordinated entry system, which is a program housed within the HMIS, which connects eligible individuals to regional supportive housing. When available. The data collected in the HMIS will help staff track resources offered, understand the needs of the people they serve, improve programs, and collaborate with the larger homeless services community to promote effectiveness and efficiency and reduce duplication of efforts. The data collected in HMIS will allow staff to identify trends and gaps in services on an ongoing basis, enabling the city to make informed decisions and policies to best address homelessness within the city. Now that we're participating in the HMIS, the staff are working with RTFH and other community partners to develop a city-specific by name list that we will then use to strategically operationalize the city's homeless response system. With the by name list, we will have a more accurate understanding of homelessness and individual needs within the community, and we will be able to prioritize services and assistance for the most vulnerable residents. And with that, I will pass it over to Captain Watts.
Perfect. Thank you, Sam. If you could, next slide, please, if you have my slide. Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and city staff. The Mayor, you stole half of my presentation with your opening. I appreciate it. This will cut this down. But so recently, at the end of June, the United States Supreme Court ruled on the Grants Pass versus Johnson, which essentially the decision allows the cities to enforce public camping bans, provided they are applied generally and not targeting any specific community within our community. So with that, I think we need to understand that homelessness is not a crime. People that are experiencing homelessness within our community are not committing a crime because they are unhoused. Our approach for law enforcement throughout the city is still going to be a resources-first approach. When I was asked how we would implement and start enforcing our camping bans throughout the city, I just wanted to make sure we had a clear distinction between homelessness and all and any individual within our community that is violating these ordinances. So these ordinances will apply to anybody, and that is the approach that we will take. So in July, deputies began issuing warnings to any individuals found to be in violation of the city's camping ordinances. During the contacts, deputies continue offering resources and services to include temporary housing to those who were identified as being unhoused. If the individual agreed to leave but refused services, the deputy advised and warned the individual that future violations would result in a misdemeanor arrest for violating the above-mentioned city ordinances. The refusal of services and resources, plus the warning, were documented by the deputies. So we thought it was very important that when we came across individuals that were in violation of our camping ordinance, that we made it clear that if they were unhoused, that we had plenty of resources. We worked closely with Sam and Stephen from the city, and the goal in the long term for the unhoused population that are violating these ordinances is to get them into housing, to address the mental illness, and to break the cycle of addiction. Those are the three main goals of our interaction with this community. So after July warnings, then we began and entered into August, where we began enforcing violations of the city's municipal codes related to unlawful camping and sleeping in vehicles after the warnings were issued in July. Deputies continue to offer resources and services to those they encounter. However, if the individual has refused services on prior occasions, the individual will now be subject to a possible misdemeanor arrest if it warrants the situation. What we are finding is the warnings in July, I think, have been beneficial and have allowed us and Sam and Stephen to explain to this community that we are doing everything we can to provide the long-term resources of housing. And we've had 3 individuals just recently come forward and say, I'm ready to accept those services, which is the goal of what we're trying to do. The impact of where we're at now, when I'm talking to the HOPE team deputies, we have noticed a significant reduction in illegal camping and individuals sleeping in vehicles throughout the city, especially in our downtown and city parks. Since August 1st, there have been no arrests related to illegal camping or sleeping in vehicles. I contribute this to a success in the partnership of working with Sam and Stephen and making sure that we're getting our resources out to the unhoused. When they started hearing that they were subject to a misdemeanor arrest, some of them needed that little bit of encouragement to take the services that we had ready and available at the time, so that we could take them over to the Boyden Creek Navigation Center and get them some housing and help. We also, when addressing the vehicles, the camping in vehicles, we took a proactive approach in July. We wrote 40 citations to recreational vehicles that were parked around our city parks, our downtown area, that were in violation of the no parking of a recreational vehicles between the hours of 10 and 6 a.m. We will continue to do that, and it seems like the violators have understood that they're not going to be allowed to continue to park in those areas, and that we will continue enforcement. We've had several individuals that have received multiple citations, and we will continue to cite those vehicles. The goal is for them to find long-term places to park their vehicles if they are using it as a dwelling. But we have noticed a decrease around our city parks where those vehicles had previously been parked. Our downtown walks early in the mornings have been a huge success for our business districts. I've spoken to many of the business owners who appreciate us going in those early morning hours as employees are arriving to the business or even prior to employees' arrivals. And then we're also doing that in the evening hours in the downtown area and our parks. And this is really as a result of the 2 additional bodies that the city agreed to contract for. I can't tell you that resource that you gave us has been a huge help in us providing resources to that community. And because of the 2 additional deputies we now have, like you said, weekend coverage. That was, I think we all identified that was a missing part, is the Saturday and Sunday when we couldn't be out there. But now because of those 2 additional deputies, we are out there. And we have seen an impact with us being out there on the weekends and being able to make contact and still offer the same services. So with that, I think that concludes my part.
Sam, I had the opportunity to attend a luncheon with you and Stephen that was hosted by the San Diego Rescue Mission, and Donnie D put on a presentation and talked a lot about the work that the rescue mission is doing. I got to know you a little bit in your background with Carlsbad. Can you talk a little bit about the HMIS system and the data work that you did for the city of Carlsbad?
Absolutely. So a little bit about my background. I worked for the Regional Task Force on Homelessness, and then I worked for the City of Carlsbad as a program manager in the Homeless Services Department. My primary purpose with the City of Carlsbad was, as the mayor is saying, to work on the data side of things. And so I worked very closely with RTFH and in getting all of the providers on board with utilizing HMIS to the best possible extent, and then utilizing the by name list that Carlsbad has been using for the last couple of years, figuring out how to operationalize that in, again, the best possible way to make it the services that were available and the resources that were available utilized in the most efficient and effective ways. And so I think we've been very effective with that, and I'm excited to help out with that here as well.
And the result is a dashboard of information that's available to the public as well as the policymakers for making informed decisions. Is that correct?
That is, yes, that is one of the things that they have, I believe they've launched at this point. They were getting ready to launch it right before I left, but they, like you're saying, took the data from the national level all the way to the state level, to the regional level, to the city level, and you can look through the Carlsbad website and the homelessness portion of the website and actually navigate through to see what's happening with both the point-in-time count numbers, with regional trends, with national trends, and then also the effect that these programs that they have operationalized have had.
So you've set expectations very high, and I look forward to having something similar on our system soon. And I appreciate all the efforts that you're making. Councilmember Lyons.
I just have a clarification question, because I imagine we have some public speakers, but I have a question too about the HMIS. Could you help explain that a little bit? I mean, I understand that if there's a citation or something, we do have that record with the Sheriff's Department. So I understand that as far as record keeping. What is it that we then will be doing in order to keep that record? Is it someone from your team then that enters the data and assesses the data? Could you explain it just a little bit more? We haven't done that, so I'd like to know.
Of course, absolutely. So the HMIS, the Homeless Management Information System, is completely separate from enforcement activities. So the HMIS is for providers that work in homeless services. So we're talking outreach workers, we're talking shelter providers, case managers, anyone that works directly with the unhoused individuals in the region. It's kind of like a customer relations management software, right? It's a database where all of the different individuals that work as providers with unhoused folks within the greater San Diego region can then go to enter the information of the unhoused residents. And then essentially what it allows us to do is make sure that we are not duplicating efforts. So we can see who's working with who, if somebody has already accessed specific services, what steps have been taken. So instead of having to go back through the same processes and procedures each time you come across someone new, you can pick up the ball wherever it was put down the last time. And then also within that system is housed a program called the Coordinated Entry System, which is kind of like it's essentially a regional by name list, right? We talk a lot about by name lists. It's essentially like a regional by name list, and the way that works is when one of our unhoused residents who is working with somebody who is entering information into the HMIS, when they are ready to start working towards housing, when they are interested in start working towards housing, right? Or really, for a lot of folks, as soon as you come into contact with someone for the first time, you can enter them into the Coordinated Entry System. And then all of the programs, the majority of the programs, all of the federally funded programs, all of the state-funded programs that actually do supportive housing services, so rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing, right? They communicate with RTFH and they tell them essentially when they have an opening in one of those programs. And then RTFH goes in, looks at the eligibility for that program, and then filters the Excel spreadsheet, which is really what it is, right, the by name list, based on that eligibility. And then they find there's something called it's a triage tool. It includes a vulnerability index to assess the most vulnerable individuals within the system. And so they sort based on that and based on other factors, and then they reach out and say, this individual has been matched to this program, and so the case manager or the outreach worker then helps that individual move through the process of actually enrolling in that housing program. So it essentially makes it so we are addressing homelessness at a regional level instead of in pockets, so we can more effectively utilize all of those resources. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I look forward to seeing what some of the data and outcomes are. I know it won't be reported in detail, but maybe in aggregate what we're able to do. One just follow-up question, is it when a person accepts services that they're entered into the database? Or is it when they're offered services?
That's a great question. And there are two different answers, but I think the way that it's supposed to work, right, is that there is the ability within the HMIS system to privatize a profile. And so anytime that a worker is going out and interacting with anyone, they should be entering that individual into the HMIS system. If they have not received consent from that person to be within the system, then they should keep their profile private. So we have the data regionally on how many individuals are actually exist as unhoused in the region, right? But they don't have their data being shared without their consent. But then once they do receive consent, they're part of that larger system of information sharing.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Raylers.
Yeah, let's see. First of all, thank you. Thank you for the database approach here. Thank you for the experience you bring to us. It sounds wonderful. I love the fact it's by name and that we're getting down to individuals. Secondly, thank you for the increased enforcement. I think that's absolutely, you'll hear me talk about carrot and stick. We got to do both. You can't do one. So I had some questions about the enforcement. You had listed, Captain Watts, you had listed the anti-camping ordinances. What about, what level enforcement for other ordinances, and I'm talking about illegal behavior, are you enforcing drunk in public? Tell me what other laws you have at your disposal that you can enforce.
Yeah, thank you. So this was specific to the camping ordinances that we have at our, that are available to us. But like you said, these are municipal codes that we can use, but we have disorderly conduct, the 647F, so drunk in public, under the influence in public, so anybody that's found to be intoxicated either by alcohol or a drug, a known drug. There's also 415 noises, so boisterous activity, where somebody complains that somebody is disturbing their peace. We can also enforce those rules. And then we also have other municipal codes where if you're in a park after hours that we can enforce.
Okay.
But yeah, and my approach, we actually just did a directed patrol detail specifically focused on 647F, our drunk in public, and under the influence of a controlled substance. So that was a whole day where we went out and drove around and contacted people that were exhibiting those types of behavior, but that is continuing to be our focus.
And I'm assuming threatening other people, anyone threatening somebody else to shoot them, or that would fall under something illegal too that you could enforce?
Correct. If the victim is willing to come forward and prosecute, that would be one of the criteria that we would need to be able to enforce it.
Excellent. And then as far as, of course, you can arrest, but you don't prosecute. And I know one of the problems we ran into before is that the county prosecutor wouldn't necessarily go the next step on the more egregious crimes. Do we still have that issue where you're hesitant, your staff is hesitant to write citations or arrest people for various of these other laws because it will do no good and they'll just get bumped back out because the county won't go the next step?
Right. So my direction to the deputies is we don't work for the district attorney's office, and therefore we enforce the laws. We are making sure that the public is safe, And what happens after we make those arrests is outside of our control, but we will continue to make those arrests.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Then I wanted to switch back to Sam to talk about the Buena Creek Navigation Center. And I think in the presentation, you had some good information about treatment and programs. And I guess I want to understand, I know we're a low barrier facility, which means they can come in under the influence, but they cannot actively do it on site to continue that habit. And as I recall, when we were having the discussions about Buena Creek Navigation Center, there was some level, low level of contingency required to stay there. Does that include treatment for substance abuse or alcohol abuse as a requirement, as a condition for continuing there long-term?
So no, with the low barrier facilities, there are no requirements to participate in treatment programs.
Wow.
But we do, and that's kind of the extent that I can answer, but we do have the retread folks in the audience if we have any specific
Yeah.
questions about.
But,
the
and I think
disease.
I got a different answer last time I asked that about this, but that, I would, so really know that, so we don't require they be recovering in any way, shape, or form to be, wow, okay.
There's no requirement, but I do know that the staff at BCNC does a lot of work to connect folks to recovery services and treatment services when they are interested.
Okay. So it is what it is. I just wanted to understand how people will continue on and hopefully get healthy. So next question is back to the database. You showed quite a few wonderful programs in here, many of them private. Do the private programs participate and contribute and coordinate through the HMIS? Do they have the, first of all, authority, permission to do it, assuming that somebody opts into HMIS? And what level of, once you either get help from one of those private services, does that get then tracked in HMIS? Let's take first the case where they've actually opted in.
So if someone has opted in, if they have chosen to have their information shared in HMIS, then it's completely covered by the data and the tracking.
But I think I'm asking, do the various private organizations, I know the public ones will because we control them and we're setting this up to help, but do they typically cooperate in that way so that we can see this individual went to agreed to opt in, went to said private service, and we continue to see their progress so that in that master HMIS, we see their progress towards permanent housing, sobriety, whatever it might be down the road. That's my question. Do they all participate in HMIS, or one of them, or none of them? Or I'm just trying to get an idea how this is all going to work. Because it's all about having a clean database, right?
Absolutely. So state and federal funding requires participation in HMIS, and so programs that are funded in those ways participate, and then you would be able to see that advancement. There are some private organizations, church groups don't always participate, but they can. And so that, privately funded organizations can be hit or miss there, but
Okay.
anything funded by state or federal funds has to participate.
And then last question is, as far as people that don't opt in yet, they haven't yet opted in, I assume that stays private, and that's really just you using a local set of the HMIS data and probably not coordinating with anybody outside of the city because of the very private nature. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Yeah, and I don't know if we have public speakers, so I was going to say maybe I can wait on my question until we have one, you said? Just one?
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Mark Maville?
think we should bump it to 35 minutes and 4 minutes. That's what I propose, anyway. Ticker on? No. My name is Mark, and I am a recovering alcoholic, 17 years. I'm very proud of that. My anonymity has just now been exposed, but that is going to be a benefit. The crux of the matter with the homeless is not databases, it's not recovery homes. Those are holding cells. They basically temporarily hold them, watch them, whatever it may be. But I've been trying to talk to other people in the program about getting an AA meeting set up for the homeless, in which we would probably need a venue permit, a safe environment for that to take place. And if they can get it that way and maybe start working the steps, there's your solution right there. Because if they can surrender and hand over themselves to God, maybe that's not a word everybody's really in tune with, but it has helped me for 17 years. I was roughed up pretty good when I came in here, came in hot from Scripps, Power area, $7,000 gone, it was just horrible. So the nemesis that I'm experiencing with the homeless, I'm turning it around and trying to the 12th step and help others in that regard, because everybody is worth it, right? We're all human beings. And I've seen miracles. People come into our programs, into our meetings that are homeless. In 6 months, they're taking care of their families. They've got a great job. And something's happened there. And it's not going to be a treatment center. It's not going to be a recovery home. It's going to be a connection with something other than themselves. And that's just what we're going to try to do. I'm going to try to get some people in the program to maybe coordinate that, get a venue permit so that it is, proper. And I have had presented to Philabelli, got a list of some people that want to get sober. We got at least 7 at this point. It's just miracles can happen, and that is the underbelly of what's going on. That's the crux of the matter, as I mentioned before. The drugs and alcohol gets to a point where there's 3 levels. The ones that are screaming and there's got so much brain damage, they're just not rehabilitated. You got the second level, which is the people that are very angry and violent and could maybe get a job or whatnot. And then there's third that are really trying. They just happen to be in that homeless element because of COVID or whatever it may be, or the drugs and alcohol. And unfortunately, they become homeless. And those people are working the best they can. I know several of them. Showers of Blessing. CRC is an excellent resource, as you had mentioned. And if the community wraps around this and the fellowship gets behind it in AA, we can do nothing but succeed. So that's what I'm proposing. But you got to be willing. They've got to be willing. They can't fight it. They can't be defiant.
Thank you.
So that's all I got.
I appreciate your outreach and your one step at a time approach and one day at a time. So with that, Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Yeah, thank you to the public speaker. And I think I'll go back to you, Sam Boyer, on the hotspot. And that is, as I read the staff report, we have a big push now to align our definitions with HMIS, get the data in there, be consistent with that with RFTH, and then we'll have some good data to bring back to the public and talk about it. Is there this next phase of how we really evaluate the effectiveness of our programs once we have that data? And can you go into that a little bit? I think some of what we hear from the public is we put a lot of resource to it, we have some programs, we still see a problem. Is this working? Are we just throwing money away? That's a harsh way to put it, but that is some of the feedback we get. So it'd be good to hear your perspective on that.
Absolutely. And that is, yes, absolutely. That is definitely the next step. I think that the way that things have evolved. We have a lot of people using the same words to mean different things. And so the first step is getting on board with everyone using the same definitions so that we can then look and better evaluate what is working and what is not working. And I think that working towards this better data collection mechanism is the first step in doing that. And then, yes, absolutely, that allows us to look at apples to apples and oranges to oranges and then move forward in evaluating what is working, what isn't working, what's efficient, what could be made more efficient. And the team is taking steps to do that as of now.
Good, I look forward to that. I know you're getting on board and moving us forward, but I do look forward to getting future updates. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to mention how much I appreciate the effort that goes into this. We've been focused on the problem of homelessness more or less for the last 6 or 7 years. COVID definitely caused an uptick in problems that we needed to address. It's been one of those vexing problems that really creates frustration not only for the community but also for the policymakers who are, generally doing everything that we can to address it, but within the constraints of the law, the Constitution, human rights, and our own compassion for the situation these people find themselves in. But I think that there has always been on this council a desire to offer a hand up, not necessarily just a hand out. And there has always been a significant amount of frustration with those people that were not interested in taking advantage of the services that were being offered. So that situation continues. And my hope is that as the new landscape with the Supreme Court decision makes clear that the status quo is definitely changed. And I think that there is a unanimity on this council that it's really important that we take steps to address the issue of homelessness and for not only the impacts on the individuals that are experiencing it, but from the other residents in our community that have to deal with some of the fallout from the situations that people find themselves in. So I appreciate that a lot. A couple of questions. One relates to the question of whether we're reactive or proactive. And I know that one of the challenges that we're finding is that for every person that you place in a home that you get out of homelessness, there may be one or two more that end up in homelessness. And are we doing enough as a community, as a region, to try and identify those people that are on the edge of ending up homeless?
I think that you are absolutely right. According to RTFH data, the most recent data that I saw, we had 14 individuals entering homelessness for every 10 individuals that exit homelessness in the San Diego region, which is significant. I think it's hard to say if we're doing enough because the problem still exists. What I can say is that there definitely are not enough resources being put towards targeted homelessness prevention. And that's part of what we're looking at in the Encampment Resolution Fund grant, right? We're looking at more targeted time-based interventions to move towards providing assistance to individuals. Encampment resolution funding cannot go towards folks that are not currently housed in the encampment resolution area, but the model that we are working to shift towards in that program, like I said, does move more towards the targeted intervention, which is where we see the most effective programs for, in the industry we call it diversion programs, right? So diversion is right after someone enters homelessness, or targeted prevention, which is right before someone enters homelessness. So to more directly answer, we are doing a lot. We're not doing enough. There are not enough resources, but we are working to shift that.
So have we established communication lines with various agencies, school districts, whatever the case may be, where we can identify folks that are headed down that road? Is that something we should be doing more about? What are you?
It is definitely something we should be doing more about, and it is something that we are making plans to move forward with as a team. So it's on the agenda.
Okay. And Captain Watts, there were cities that were passing ordinances, anti-camping ordinances 6 months ago in preparation for a Supreme Court decision that may, that would do what has happened. People asked me if we were going to do that, and I told them that we didn't need to because we already had an ordinance on the books along those lines. I want to ask if you are aware of any ordinances in other jurisdictions that the city of Encinitas should consider adopting in order to provide a little bit more ability to address the issues that we're talking about.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Mayor. In fact, we were looked at as a model for a lot of those cities. The partnership that we have here with with Sam and Stephen and the approach that we are doing as a city has been recognized by our surrounding jurisdictions. And I think it's important that we recognize that this is not a law enforcement solution. This is not just a giving the resource solution. It takes a team. It can't just be a social worker or law enforcement. It really has to be a team effort, and we have made that model, and it's been recognized by a lot of my partners and jurisdictions that surround our city. Law enforcement cannot take an individual, and I think sometimes the public isn't aware that we can't, when we interact with that individual, if they would like services, we cannot facilitate that. It takes a social worker to facilitate that. So by us, with the city having Sam and Stephen readily available and part of our team, it gives us that access to be able to get those people during that real crucial moment when they're ready to accept services, because that can change by the hour. And I think, Deputy Mayor Blackwell, when you brought up successes, I think it's hard to measure a success overnight. I think that what we're looking at, it's long-term solutions to a problem that's existed a long time. I measure success when I see my deputies. This isn't something we can address from inside our office. We have to get out and engage with this community. And I measure the success when I see and go out with the deputies, and I see that they have made real connections, relationships with our unhoused community, where they're on first name basis, they are comfortable approaching us, and they're comfortable coming to us if they have an issue. Where before we had this, there was more use of forces when we interacted with that community because they were scared. They didn't know what our approach was going to be. So I measured the success on, we can go and engage with these individuals, and it's more of a relationship, and they're not scared. They understand that we're here to help them.
Thank you. And I'm a big fan of the work that Roseanne Haggerty does with Community Solutions. We got an email from Bob Kent that talks a little bit about by name listing. We're headed in that direction. That's great. I think the one caveat that I have from my awareness of the approach that they take is that you can drive homelessness to what is referred to as functional zero, but because of the constant nature of this business, unfortunately, you never really can rest. There's always one more person to engage with and to try and provide some help to. So thank you all for what you're doing. Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you, Mayor. As you're explaining today, we've spent a good part of an hour, and you've given us an overview. I found this to be so informative, and I think it's, from my perspective, it feels overdue because people are hungry for the knowledge and the information. They really want to know, are you doing things? They might not see it in their daily life. So I think it's really incumbent upon us to more broadly communicate and get our message out and ask for input from the community. Before coming to this special session today, I reached out to the executive director of Cardiff 101, and we just have a regular dialogue. And I told her about this, and she said she'll be watching it on the webcast because it's so informative. She just couldn't be here. But one thing we were talking about is in the past, your deputies have come to talk to both the businesses and to the community around Glen Park and shared really good information. Now, that's over a year ago now, and it seems like forever ago. I think the community really is dying and desperate for more information. They know that we can do things a little bit differently now, and I spend a lot of my time one-on-one trying to explain that to them, but I think we could probably be really effective by making sure we have a good strategy for regular communication with our community groups and our business groups. So I'm kind of making that as a broad statement. So our city manager hears it, and Captain Watts, you hear it, and hopefully we can get that going and do a good job of communicating. It's not only education as far as what we're doing, but I think the numbers are important. I think people learn things in many different ways. Some people learn from numbers, some people learn in different ways. But when we can report on how things have improved and perhaps where we need to still focus to make more improvements as far as the numbers and the data, I think that'll be beneficial. So having said that, I did have a couple other questions and comments. My first comment is you mentioned the foot patrol, Captain Watts, and I didn't want it to just go as a mention. I just wanted to highlight how the foot patrol is getting really good feedback. I think it's just a very smart way to engage with the public, to be there, to be approachable, and I think probably the foot patrol itself at dawn and at dusk has elevated the communication in the community. I know you've also gone out on special foot patrols. I've seen your deputies at special events in the downtown areas. So please, my comment to you is please continue that. I think that's very, very successful. And I did have a question about something you talked about where there's the opportunity. We have the 3 municipal codes that we're enforcing differently now. Camping on private property, camping on public property, and sleeping in vehicles. Could you shed a little bit more light on when you said sleeping in cars and that in July your deputies gave 40 citations, and now in August, what is after citations for sleeping in cars, what's the next step? And if you presented that earlier, I didn't quite catch it. Could you expand on that?
So just like the camping on public property, the municipal code would apply still to the camping inside of vehicles. So what we did was in July, we were focusing on the vehicle itself and not the person residing in the vehicle so that we could get the warning out there. We could cite the vehicle just like we would any other vehicle, and we were not focused on somebody that was living inside the vehicle. So now that we're moving forward, we have that at our discretion that we could move forward just like with the other ordinances, and we could enforce those.
And so then that would also be a misdemeanor arrest? I just need to connect the dots there.
Yes, correct. It would be a misdemeanor arrest, correct.
Okay, good. That's clear now. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Ehlers.
So one of the areas I want to focus on, and I think the public is probably focused on, is chronic and service-resistant individuals. I think if I had to point to every complaint I ever hear and that I personally run into, it is always a chronic individual who, and HUD defines that as being both more than a year and also having a serious mental illness, a substance use disorder, or a physical disability. So if I'm talking about that group that are the ones in the parks that are typically causing some other problem with other residents or doing some sort of typically illegal act, what are we doing to focus on those individuals in particular? Because I think that's where we're really running in, where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. So I'll put it to Sam first, and I think I'd like to hear from Captain Watts, too.
Thank you for the question. I think that it's difficult to quantify service resistant at this point because we don't have a lot of the resources that we need to end homelessness, even though there's a lot of resources being invested in homelessness. So there are not enough actual housing programs that go to meet the needs of folks. So when we use the word service resistant, it can be difficult because the vast majority of the folks that I meet, if not all of them, but the vast, vast majority of them are connected to the services that are available in the sense that they're connected to CalFresh, they're connected to Medi-Cal, they're connected to General Relief, they're connected to CRC for food. But those things don't end homelessness.
Let me clarify a little. Chronically homeless is really more what it's people that are chronically homeless. In other words, they're sleeping in the street, but they're also not accepting beds. And the other services I understand we should offer them, I support that fully, but I'm more worried about the ones that are, I don't want to go into a facility because I won't be able to probably do my drugs typically, at least the ones I seem to run into. So, and that's the chronically homeless definition I was using.
Okay. So I think that the by name list is a great way of addressing chronic homelessness. One of the ways that the by name list will be utilized is we can sort by chronic homelessness, and then we can look and say, these are the 10 folks that have been unhoused in the city of Encinitas for the longest period of time. And then we can customize and focus services like outreach and case management on those individuals to try to move them into housing and to get the stabilizing services that they need. What I can say as a provider who has done outreach all over the county, particularly here in North County, I haven't come across many, if any, individuals who, when offered the right assistance or the assistance that they need, didn't take it. And so we have like I said, we have very few supportive housing services. And a lot of these folks who do have these mental illnesses need that higher level of service. And we don't have that supportive housing to offer necessarily always, but that is something that we will have the ability to match folks to when it is available through HMIS and the coordinated entry system.
So I think you said that you haven't met many homeless that, when offered the right services, don't take it. Really? Every walk, did a ride along where every homeless person we encountered turned down the services, and it seems like we have certain chronic ones, whether whether it's in Swami's, Glen Park, Cottonwood Park, they always seem to turn down a bed in particular, getting them off the street someplace safe. So in the interest of time, I won't belabor that, but I want to go, we didn't talk about SB 43. And so what are your comments on SB 43 and the hopefully someday, increased ability to use conservatorship, again, for these chronically homeless for substance abuse or mental illness or even physical disability? Usually I think they would take the services, but it's usually, in my opinion, what I see, the mentally ill coupled with substance abuse that turn it down. So SB 43 may give us another tool. Can you give an update on where we are with that and why the county didn't implement it sooner?
I can't give an update on that now, but I can look into it and then get back to you.
Okay. But as of the county pushed off the implementation until 2026. And the claim I heard or read was that it would overwhelm the mental health system for the county, yet in this budget cycle, they didn't increase the funding. So I'm a little perplexed. I got the impression it got kicked down the road. And so, by the way, the foot patrol, I don't know if Captain Watts, you want to comment on the chronic, I'm going to guess 80% of your work is on 20% of the homeless.
I would agree. Roughly they're 10%, 20%. And, our approach is not on the individual. It's the illegal act that the individual is facilitating at the time. Do we focus on individuals? We do not. We focus on the act itself. Where this helps us is now we have, if any individual is found to be in violation of these municipal codes, and we have established a rapport with them, we've contacted them numerous times, and they have refused our services, well, now we are at the step where we will now make the misdemeanor arrest. So that's where we are at now and the tools that we have available to us.
Excellent. And I was going to request later, I'll get with you directly to request another ride-along, except based on, and I love the foot patrol, I'm going to ask for a walk-along this time, so thank you. I'm done.
Yes, and I would point out that SB 43 is an important tool, and I look forward to its implementation. The county grand jury did a report on the state of mental health facilities in the county and well documented how woefully under resourced that area is. The lack of beds that are necessary in order to address the problem countywide is significant. So, I don't think we should let them off the hook. The county is responsible for that through the Department of Health and Human Services. So I think one of the things that we need to perhaps redouble on is our message to the County Board of Supervisors that we expect them to address that particular issue. And the good news that I've recently received is that Palomar Hospital, even though that they had the county had backed out on the financing, their participation in the construction of a new mental health facility, Palomar Health is moving forward with groundbreaking in the first part of September on a mental health facility that I think is intended to help the entire region. So I look forward to that. And I appreciate the work of former Mayor Gaspar, who is a part of the Palomar Health system. And I think there's a recognition that there's a lot more that we all need to do. So the team that you've put together is really critical. I appreciate the work that the city manager has done to help us to get to this point. It hasn't been without plenty of controversy and challenges along the way, starting from the implementation of the safe parking lot. Deputy Wells back there has been doing tremendous work. We really appreciate the boots on the ground efforts that you're making. Thank you very much for that. I know there are plenty of deputies, plenty of fire service folks that are engaged in this particular issue, and it's going to continue to be a challenge, but it's one that I think we're all dedicated to addressing. So with that, this particular special meeting is adjourned. It is 6:03. We will start the regular city council meeting at 6:13. Thank you very much.